Here we discuss the part of demerits of drawback of the CFT or the LFT. You can say CFT and also LFT. This demerits or drawback is explained by scientist Mullicones in 1932. Here, what is the drawbacks? What is the demerits of crystal field theory or ligand field theory? First of all, what is the assumption? The assumption who tell this is the bonding between metal and ligands are the ionic bond, purely ionic. So it explain only purely ionic bonding. We can say purely ionic nature or electrostatic attraction between metal and ligand. So that is considered this. It ignore the attractive force between the orbitals. The second assumption is that it ignore the attractive force of d orbitals of metal and nuclear charge of ligand. So it explain what the next demerits or you can say drawback. So that is it explain the d orbitals of so this nothing but what we can say this one is it does not explain. What I said, this what I explained, this is purely electrostatic. Who explained? The CFT explained. But this is what a covalency. This is also it shows the covalency in nature. The first drawback we can say it explained. It is nothing but who explained? The CFT is explained purely ionic electrostatic. So this is a drawback. This is we can say this what nothing but a covalency in nature, है ना? So ये क्या हुआ उसका assumption था, लेकिन यहाँ पे drawback लिखना है तो it is do not explain. You can say covalency between metal and ligand. So as a on the basis of CFT or LFT, that metal and ligands having the purely electrostatic attraction, but in this case that is not the covalency nature between the metal and ligand. So here it does not explain the px, py and pz orbitals. Not test the properties of such types of the orbitals. It explain only d orbital, the splitting pattern is expressed. We know that the splitting pattern is expressed. I explain that is dxy, dx and this one are dy. So these types of the properties explained again what dx square minus y square and what are dz square. So these types of the properties were explained by CFT and VFT by Bethe and Blake. So the next drawback is what? This is what is the drawback, and I explain this on the basis of the spectrochemical series. This is explained. This is what this hydroxy ions. Okay, we can say the properties of the metals. This is the transition metal 3D series, 4D series, 5D series is explained on the basis of it is nothing but it explain only. We can say it explain only the properties. It explain only properties of metals or complexes. We can say complexes on the basis of what? Spectrochemical series. On the basis of spectrochemical series. It explains this what a spectrochemical series. But in this case, one of the drawback is here. So that is the drawback is observed. This hydroxy as a ligand is what? is below to the water molecule as well as ammonia. This is a below to the water molecule as well as ammonia, but also it shows greater splitting. So that is what I am writing here. This hydroxy group lies between. The next assumption drawback is that the hydroxy ligand is below to water molecule and ammonia, but also it shows a greater splitting, but also it shows the greater splitting. It shows the greater splitting pattern. Then water molecules and ammonia as a ligand. Okay, it does not explain. So it means that it unable to explain the relative strength of ligand. It unable to explain a relative strength of ligands. So it explains this is what a relative strength of, it explains the relative strength of ligand. So again, it is affected on the pi bond on octahedrous. It explain pi bond affected. You can say it explain affected pi bond on delta zero. It does not explain. This is what the demerits of it. It does not explain what the polyatomic molecules, the properties of polyatomic molecule does not explain the properties of polyatomic molecules. Again, it does not explain what this delta bonding. It do not explain delta bonding. So these are the drawbacks or the demerits of CFT or LFT.